My name's Tim Peeler. I work here at NC State in the athletics department. I've been thinking a lot over these last few weeks about Dwayne and the influence he had on me. I remember the first time I saw him in the offices of the old Student Center up a little ways down the road here where we had our offices at that time. He was sitting in a chair with his legs back and his hands behind his head, and he was just sitting there not doing anything. And it's like, who is this guy and what's he doing? And so I was actually a mechanical engineering major from a rural part of North Carolina who had no inclinations of being a newspaper person until I went to technician and started working. And there was this crusty old guy sitting there, and they said, if you ever have any questions or things that you want to know about writing a story, if you want to go over a story, just make use of his services, he'll help you out. And so, you know, I was writing sports, so there really wasn't a whole lot of things to talk to him about. But I started getting to know him a little bit, just hearing him work with other reporters, hearing him do other things. And we sort of clicked, and I remember now why we clicked, because I think it had a lot to do with, he called me the same thing that my dad always called me when I was a kid. He would always look at me with those big eyes and say, damn it, Tim, you got to do it this way. So from then on, damn it, Tim was my name with Dwayne, and he worked that way, you know, for the entire time I was there. I worked with him when I was a technician. I worked with him when I went to my first job in Salisbury, North Carolina. I worked with him when I went to my second job in Greenville, South Carolina. I worked with him when I went up to my third job in Durham, North Carolina. So he got around, I got around. I don't know if that's a good thing for either of us, but he had a huge influence on what I was able to do in the newspaper business. One of my fondest memories that I always remember about Dwayne was one of the few times I ever actually won an award working in newspapers. The newspaper staff all went out to dinner, and it was when I was in Salisbury, I believe, or maybe it was when I was in Durham, but they invited Dwayne to come along with us. And I don't know who was more proud that day, he being there to see some of his former students doing that, or me being able to be there and share that with them. And I always remember and be appreciative of having that opportunity.
And I know Dwayne's here. And, oh shucks, I wasn't going to do this with the first word. But anyway, some people have emailed me that couldn't be here, and then they turned up that they're here. But still said that they didn't want to be reading because they would cry. And I said, well, join the crowd. But this came from Leslie Weaver, I'm sorry. Leslie, thank you so much. I thought it might be good to let you know what Dwayne meant to me. I was a cub reporter at the Gaston Gazette back in the early 90s. I was the only reporter at that time that did not have any experience. Plenty of drive, but green as grass. They put Dwayne on the case. He sat down and read my first story. He then took off his glasses, rubbed his eyes, and said, "You've got to be blank. Kidding me." Dwayne saw something in me that I didn't even know existed, and upon each return to the Gazette, he gave me as much coaching time as he did his star reporters. Believe me, I needed it. After about 1 year of coaching from Dwayne, I was promoted to city reporter. I was so thrilled, and unlike some others, I welcomed his constructive criticism. I knew that if he hurt my feelings at the news desk, he would make up for it later in the day, and when we all met for a couple beers at a local bar. I left the Gazette about 3 years later to become assistant editor of a small newspaper in Laurinburg, North Carolina. Once again, I was nowhere near ready for that job, but Dwayne kept telling me I could do it. I was overwhelmed when the editor I was working for left and they promoted me to his position. I had to do the right thing, call Dwayne. After a few curse words, Dwayne agreed to drive down and meet with me. He did not leave for 3 days. He stayed and helped me through it all. His visit was over the Thanksgiving holiday, and he wouldn't leave until he made damn sure that I had a real Thanksgiving meal. He took me to the Holiday Inn in Pinehurst, and we had a great time. I also have to credit Dwayne for teaching me the best way to drink brandy. I think that's what I really got me through the hard times. 1 year later, my house burned down. My father died in the same 2 weeks period. So what did I do? I called Dwayne. I told him that I wanted to move to the Triangle area and work for a newspaper as a reporter, and that I hated being an editor. He said, "Blank, you just got there and now you want a blank leave?" I said yes. 2 weeks later, I had a reporting job at the Herald Sun newspaper. We lost touch after that, but I thought about him all the time. I still think about him and recently tried to find him. I guess things happen for a reason because I don't think I could have taken seeing him suffering. I just know this. I will always love that man, and I will never forget what he meant to me. I am just one of many people that feel this way. But for what it's worth, I wanted you to know this. Thank you so much. We have a wonderful variety of people here, and it pleases me no end to know that there are people that Dwayne, as Leslie, he worked with as a student, and there's people here that knew him growing up, and there's people here who maybe got to know him through the Green Group, and I just think that's wonderful that all ages and all knowing can come together on this special day. Bob Watkins, are you here?
Dwayne was working in the funeral home in Hickory. He was a senior in high school, and I was in Orion College. A couple of my buddies would also spend the night down at the funeral home, make a few extra bucks. 50 cents overnight, 75 cents if you drove the ambulance. We drove the ambulance, we slept at night, and sometimes there wasn't enough room to sleep, we'd go back in and sleep beside where the coffins were. Dwayne was a great guy. I've known him off and on for the last 60 years or greater, but he was a freshman in college and I was a senior. And he looked up at me like, why are you so smart? And I wasn't, but he and I both went to Korea. He was a pilot and I was a foot soldier. We kept in touch with each other all the years. I went to visit him about 10 years ago down in Charleston. So he and a bunch of our friends have always been fun friends for the last 60 years. And thank you for letting us have this celebration.